In a world where luxury masks loneliness and wealth hides decay, a twisted romance took root behind the manicured hedges of a Palm Beach mansion. This wasn't the kind of affair whispered in passing at a country club. It was something more corrosive. Daniel Carter, 22, a disillusioned bartender with no direction and nothing to lose, stepped into the life of Evelyn Montgomery, an 82-year-old widow whose fortune came from a dead husband and a lifetime of keeping up appearances. Daniel never belonged in Palm Beach. He wasn't born into the world of imported marble kitchens and private drivers. He poured drinks for the people who were. But on a suffocating summer night, at a glittering charity gala dripping with crystal and old money, fate, if you could call it that, sat across the ballroom in a designer gown, drowning in diamonds and decades of isolation. Evelyn didn't see a bartender. She saw something she'd lost: youth, hunger, the illusion of a second chance. She drew Daniel in with stories of Parisian winters, of yachts that never touched the same port twice. Her loneliness was polished, curated, and lethal. Daniel bit. He always would have. Not for love, but for the escape she represented. At first it was subtle, a touch on the wrist. A business card slipped into his palm like a secret. But it escalated quickly. Dinners became late-night conversations, and soon they became something else entirely. Evelyn introduced Daniel to her home, a mausoleum dressed as a mansion. Everything inside screamed old money: oil paintings of dead relatives, velvet chairs no one sat in, wine that cost more than Daniel's rent for a year. But Daniel didn't just want in, he wanted more. And Evelyn? She wanted control. The dynamic between them blurred fast. He was a project. She was a savior, until they weren't. They became obsession tangled in flesh. She bought him things: a watch that cost more than his car, clothes tailored to his lean frame, access to everything her late husband had left behind, except freedom, because the gifts came with strings. So did the affection. Evelyn didn't want a lover. She wanted a possession. And Daniel, for all his charm, wasn't built for a gilded cage. He started pulling away, showing up late, asking questions about the money, about the will. Evelyn noticed. Of course she did. She always noticed. Control wasn't something she gave up easily. And love? That was just a currency like any other. Before we dive any deeper, I just want to take a moment to thank you for watching and supporting our videos. I've noticed that many of you are enjoying the content but haven't subscribed yet. If you like what we do, don't hesitate to hit that subscribe button. It helps us more than you think. Thank you so much, and now let's get back to the story. Their relationship raised eyebrows everywhere they went. Some whispered that Daniel was a gold digger, just another pretty face trying to climb the social ladder. Others said Evelyn was preying on a vulnerable young man, using her money and power to keep him on a leash. But Daniel didn't care. He was living a life most people could only dream of. And for once, it felt like he had some control, like he was finally playing the game instead of being crushed by it. Evelyn gave him everything: a brand new sports car, tailored designer suits, expensive watches, connections that opened doors to a world Daniel had never even known existed. She paraded him around as if he were a prize, and in some ways, that's exactly what he became. The more she gave him, the more trapped he felt. He told himself it was temporary, just a means to an end. But each gift, each kiss, each whispered promise made it harder to imagine leaving. What started as seduction became dependence. Evelyn began to tighten her grip, controlling where he went, what he wore, who he spent time with. She didn't make suggestions, she issued orders. At first, Daniel tolerated it. She was paying for everything after all. But over time, her surveillance became suffocating. She'd call him constantly, show up uninvited, question his every move. It was obsessive, it was possessive. It wasn't love, it was control. And yet Daniel stayed, because beneath the tension, beneath the growing resentment, there was still the allure. The money, the lifestyle, the illusion of a future he never believed he could have. Evelyn promised to set him up with his own business, to help him build something real. She told him they were building a life together, but every step forward came with another chain. The more time he spent in Evelyn's world, the more he lost touch with who he used to be. The bartender scraping tips to pay rent no longer existed. He was Evelyn Montgomery's lover now, the boy, toy of a woman 4 times his age, orbiting her wealth and influence like a satellite. He attended parties with developers and socialites, shook hands with people who could erase a man's past with a phone call. But he never belonged, not really. He could feel it in their eyes, their forced smiles, their quiet judgment behind champagne flutes. Evelyn ignored it all. If anything, she seemed to thrive on the scandal. She wore their affair like a badge, her final rebellion against everything polite society expected of her. But cracks began to form. She became more reliant on Daniel, emotionally, physically. As her body weakened and her mind spiraled deeper into fear, she clung to him with desperation. She feared he'd leave, that he'd slip away into the arms of someone younger, freer. Her paranoia grew. She demanded to know his whereabouts at all times. She called incessantly, sometimes 10, 15 times in a row. She even hired a private investigator to follow him. When she wasn't accusing him of lying, she was crying, begging him not to abandon her. Evelyn didn't just want love, she wanted ownership. And Daniel was breaking under the pressure. What had once been thrilling became suffocating. Evelyn's estate, once a palace, now felt like a prison. She insisted he move in full-time, cut ties with his friends, avoid his family. She wanted all of him, every minute, every thought. She set rules, controlled his phone, monitored his online activity, and when he pushed back, even gently, she lashed out, accusing him of betrayal, of using her, of being ungrateful. "You don't need anyone else but me," she'd whisper through trembling lips. "I gave you everything, don't forget that." Daniel tried to rationalize it. She was old, she was lonely, she was afraid. But no amount of empathy could drown out the suffocation. His life was no longer his own. It belonged to Evelyn. Every choice, every hour, every breath hers to control. And as much as he wanted to believe he still had options, he was beginning to realize he didn't. He was no longer free. He was property. And love, if it ever existed between them, had long since curdled into something darker. Their fights became louder, longer, and more vicious. Evelyn hurled accusations with venom, calling Daniel ungrateful, a leech who was draining her dry. She reminded him, again and again, that without her, he was nothing. No money, no name, no future. And every time, Daniel found himself wavering, torn between the hunger for freedom and the reality that he'd grown too used to her world of luxury to leave it behind. One night, it all spiraled. The argument started over something small, Daniel wanting to meet a friend. But Evelyn exploded. In the opulent living room of her mansion, with the dim glow of crystal chandeliers overhead, she cornered him like a wild animal. Her face was flushed, voice trembling with rage. She jabbed her finger at him, eyes burning with something between heartbreak and hatred. "You're just like the others," she spat. "You think you can use me, take everything and leave. You think you can walk away from this?" Daniel tried to calm her, to diffuse the situation, but she was beyond reason. Her voice dropped to a venomous hiss. "If you leave, you'll never see another penny from me. I'll ruin you, Daniel, don't test me," he snapped. Something in him broke. Trapped, desperate, blinded by months of psychological warfare, he reached for the closest object, a marble statue perched on a side table, and swung. The sound it made when it hit her skull was sickening. Evelyn dropped instantly, her body limp, a pool of blood blooming beneath her like some grotesque flower. Silence swallowed the room. The ticking of a clock echoed louder than it should. Daniel stood, frozen, gasping for air, staring at what he'd done. He hadn't meant to kill her. He just wanted her to stop suffocating him, stop controlling him. But now she was gone. Panic kicked in. His brain, fogged with adrenaline, latched onto the only instinct left: run. But first, he needed to clean. He grabbed a cloth, wiped down the statue, then frantically moved through the mansion, trying to erase every trace of himself. His fingerprints were everywhere. It was hopeless, but he tried anyway. touching surfaces, checking corners, racing against time. The mansion that had once represented success now felt like a crypt. Its grandeur mocked him, its silence screamed. His hands shook as he scrubbed. His heart thundered as he moved from room to room, knowing it was all useless. Eventually, he fled, grabbing his phone and wallet and driving with no destination in mind. Palm Beach blurred past the windshield as he wrestled with the weight of what he'd done. Evelyn had plucked him from obscurity, given him everything, and now she was dead at his hands. The next morning, Evelyn's personal assistant, Monica Harrington, arrived for their usual meeting. She'd worked with Evelyn for years, knew her habits, her temper, her routines. When Evelyn didn't respond to her knocking, Monica's stomach turned. This wasn't like her. After several unanswered calls, Monica let herself in. The mansion was too quiet. Something felt off. She called out, her voice echoing into the stillness. Then she saw her. Evelyn's body sprawled on the floor, dried blood dark and sticky beneath her head. Monica screamed. She stumbled back, dropping, her purse fumbling for her phone with trembling fingers. When the police arrived, they found her standing outside, unable to stop shaking. Inside, the crime scene told a clear story. A struggle, violence, a marble statue coated in blood, fingerprints, smudges, desperation. Detectives descended on the Keeger mansion, aware this was no ordinary homicide. Evelyn Montgomery was a public figure, a woman of immense wealth and influence. Her death was going to make headlines. The forensic team began their work, and it didn't take long to uncover crucial evidence. Most damning of all, the security footage. Cameras throughout the property had captured Daniel arriving that night and leaving. He'd tried to clean, but he hadn't even thought to erase the footage. Daniel instantly became the prime suspect. Investigators tracked his phone, spoke to his friends, pieced together the story. Monica filled in the blanks. Evelyn's paranoia, her jealousy, her obsession with keeping Daniel close. It painted a picture not just of romance, but of control, manipulation, and fear. Within hours, a warrant for Daniel's arrest was issued. But he was already gone. And for the first time in his life, Daniel had no idea where he was going. All he knew was that everything Evelyn had built for him had collapsed beneath the weight of her control, his rage, and the final act of a man who had lost himself long before that fatal night. Daniel kept moving, city to city, motel to motel, always looking over his shoulder. He was out of options, relying on cash and fake names, sleeping in rooms that reeked of desperation and bleach. The weight of what he'd done followed him like a shadow, silent, unrelenting. He knew he couldn't run forever, but he wasn't ready to be caught. Not yet. It was in a rundown motel in Miami where it all ended. He had registered under a name he barely remembered, staying low, barely speaking to anyone. But it wasn't enough. The police tracked him down, kicked in the door before sunrise, and arrested him without a struggle. No drama, no last stand. Just quiet resignation as they cuffed him and let him out. The story exploded. News channels ran footage of his arrest on a loop. Headlines screamed about the boy toy killer, the young man who lived off an aging millionaire only to murder her in cold blood. The media tore him apart. Some outlets painted him as a calculating manipulator, others as a broken soul caught in something far bigger than himself. Everyone had an opinion. No one had the full truth. During the trial, Daniel sat in silence as both sides unraveled his life. His defense painted Evelyn as a possessive, emotionally abusive woman who had isolated him, controlled every part of his existence, and turned love into a prison. They argued he lashed out in fear, not malice. A moment of panic, a tragic mistake. But the prosecution wasn't interested in painting a gray picture. They had footage, they had fingerprints, they had Monica's testimony and evidence of a man who had tried to erase his presence from a crime scene. They told a story of greed, of a man who had grown too used to luxury and lashed out the moment it was threatened. A man who didn't stop until Evelyn lay dead. The trial stretched on for weeks. The courtroom became a stage, filled with whispers, flashing cameras, and shifting narratives. Was Daniel a victim or a predator? The jury struggled. Days passed, in deliberation, and then a verdict. Guilty of second-degree murder, 25 years. Possibility of parole after 15. Daniel didn't react when the sentence was read. His face was unreadable, drained of everything. Outside, reporters crowded. The steps of the courthouse, shouting questions, chasing headlines. Inside, it was just another life shattered. Evelyn's death sent shockwaves through Palm Beach. The socialite scene, once enchanted by her charm and wealth, now whispered about her downfall. How had someone so powerful met such a violent, intimate end? The mansion, once alive with music and champagne, was now abandoned. A shell of marble and silence. A tomb with no gravestone. Daniel adjusted to prison like a man who knew he deserved to be there. The days blurred together. He replayed everything over and over. The first meeting, the promises, the parties, the arguments, the blood, the silence. He had nothing left. The riches were gone. So was the woman who, for all her control, had once pulled him from nothing. Whether it was love, dependence, or obsession, none of it mattered anymore. Evelyn's estate was divided among distant relatives who hadn't spoken to her in years. The mansion was eventually sold, though no one kept it long. Its beauty couldn't hide its past. People talked, people remembered. The case faded from headlines, but never from memory. It became a warning about control, desire, the illusion of safety behind closed doors. About how the things we chase, power, status, comfort, can twist into something far darker. Daniel's story wasn't the first of its kind. It wouldn't be the last. But for years, it lingered, in conversations, in hushed tones, in the fear that no amount of wealth can truly protect you from the people you let in. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more disturbing true crime stories. Leave your thoughts and theories in the comments below.